I ask him to wait a minute because I think we have to applaud him, first of all, because he made an excellent Israel improvisation. Second, because he showed all of us that he is coming from a great Israeli company that not only having slides, but really make the activity happen. Thank you very much, Yochai, and I'm sorry for what happened. So if I try to give a header to whatever was said by Yochai, I think the message is that the industry, a key player in the ability to provide national sector-level, comprehensive, proactive cyber defense. And we go directly to our very important guest who came from the USA, Mr. Hayden Land. I would like, first of all, to thank you, Mr. Hayden, for coming to Israel. But most of it, I would like to thank very much Lockheed Martin for the great decision to come to Israel, to invest in Israel, to work in Beersheba, and to make it happen, to make together the cooperation between the great Lockheed Martin and the Beersheba University of the Negev. So thank you very much for coming. אני חושב שמגיעות לו מחיאות כפיים סוערות for מה שהוא עשה. I take also the opportunity to thank a very important lady who is sitting there in the shade, Orna Berry, Dr. Orna Berry, who is the president of EMC in Israel, to make it really happen that so many companies came to Israel and decided to have their cyber center in Israel. Thank you very much, Orna. Hayden Land is the Vice President, Research and Technology of Lockheed Martin Information Systems and Global Solutions. He is Vice President. Mr. Land had 30 years of professional experience and serves U.S. government, agencies, allied nations, and regulated commercial industries. Mr. Land is responsible for technical solutions, strategic partnership, global innovation centers, and research and development supporting defense, intelligence, civilian, and commercial requirements. Are you sure you are doing all of this? One man only? Great, thank you. And his areas of expertise include cloud computing, big data, cybersecurity, mobility, adaptive science, enterprise architecture, and complex engineering. He serves on several academia industry boards and is recognized as a global speaker. Mr. Land holds a bachelor's degree in mathematics and computer science from Potsdam University and master's degree in computer science from Syracuse University. He has been selected as one of the top thought leaders in business and technology by numerous organizations, received Professional Lifetime Achievement Award, and recipient of 2 honorary doctorate degrees. Mr. Hayden will speak about building critical infrastructure protection across whole of society, and I really hope, thank you very much for coming, that the slides will be okay this time.
Well, good afternoon. Lockheed Martin really appreciates the opportunity to verify our Is that better? Yeah, people call me loud, but it wasn't loud enough. So I'm going to talk about a inflection point that I'm seeing across the areas I serve. I'm responsible for all technologies in our enterprise IT businesses. We have roughly 12 program areas. The agencies we serve and the domains were summarized in the opening. And cyber is relevant to so many other key technologies in our portfolio that it's one that runs horizontal. So it gets a lot of attention. I am going to share a little about the global spend, specifically on defensive cyber over the past 4 years, to understand how much is being invested globally. And I'll talk about a convergence that's occurring that's driving us toward a hyper-connected world and what that means for those in the cyber profession. I'll give you a little on threat vectors, the landscape that I deal with in my role, a few best practices on how to master this art, and I'll give you an example of the ecosystem that we've established that connects industry, academia, and government. And there's a lot of lessons learned there that I think you all can leverage. I'll give you an example of the Lockheed Martin infrastructure and the types of attacks and the amount of attacks that we have on a daily basis. And then I'll talk about what may come in the next 10 years. I can do this fairly quickly. So how many out there use like Twitter, Yahoo, Facebook, YouTube, etc., by a show of hands? Probably quite a few. What's running on traditional hardware today? We have had some advances in high-performance computing, cloud computing, and others, but the world is changing fast, very fast. Today, there are 1.4 billion smartphones that are out accessing the web on a daily basis, 1.4 billion. So there's a transition from your traditional desktop computer, notebooks, etc., to the smartphones as the engagement. There's also just about 6 billion cellular subscriptions in the world. That's 90% of the world population. So if we want to engage the evolving market, the smart devices, the information on the edge is really where that action needs to take in the future. Devices have exploded. You heard at the opening remarks of this session, 50 billion by the end of the decade. By the end of the decade, there'll be 200 billion occasionally connected, like SCADA devices for energy and those that fall back asleep. So a massive amount of devices. Information is exploded. There's roughly 3 zettabytes on the internet. A zettabyte is 10 to the 21st power. By the end of the decade, a zettabyte, there'll be about 20 zettabytes. By the end of the decade, fast forward to the end of the century, there'll be a yottabyte. A yottabyte is 10 to the 24th power. If you were to download a yottabyte on a high-speed network, it'll take you 10 trillion years. That's where this internet is going. Social fusion. If the population of Twitter were a nation, it'd be the 5th largest nation in this world, between Brazil and Indonesia. Facebook or LinkedIn would be number 3 between India and the United States. And if Angry Birds were a nation, it'd be the largest with 1.5 billion. Social fusion is key. These are other examples that are driving us to a world of always-on personal situational awareness. There's an evolution of new applications that are becoming mainstay, such as Prezi, Glogster. I don't know how many Glogsters are out there, or Gloggers. Augmented reality, 3D printing, invisible offerings, gamification, and other examples. These require new technologies that are evolving. Near-field communications is going to be very prevalent. Machine learning and big data are getting a huge amount of attention in terms of R&D. Cyberfractology, I'll wrap up with. That's where cyber is going long-term. And then there's others. So we're really at an inflection point. And Clay Shirky had a wonderful quote years ago. When we change the way we communicate, and we change society. And those companies and industries that don't adapt to this technology inflection will be disrupted. And cyber is critical to that journey. In 60 seconds, from this point forward, this is what is happening on the internet, and every 60 seconds thereafter. 510,000 Facebook posts, over 200 emails, 200 million emails, 20 new victims of identity theft, etc. That's the world we live in today. Technology convergence is key. 3 years ago, a lot of times I would speak with people, it'd just be about cloud, or it'd just be about mobility, or it may be about big data, or potentially social, or cyber. Today, these previous independent forces are becoming highly interdependent. We're in a hyper-connected world. There's a digitization of industry occurring. And this is creating a tremendous challenge for those who need to protect their enterprise. So there's a convergence of cyber being related to all of those. So when a company an agency, a ministry develops a cyber solution or a cyber strategy, a cloud strategy, a mobility strategy, they all need to be interconnected in order to be successful. The landscape, the cyber actors are getting better. We're seeing much more in the nation-state area, as well as increase of insider threat. The attack vectors are becoming much more prevalent. A lot more mission-unique attack vectors, where they specialize in creating a financial industry vector, where they specialize in oil and gas, where they specialize in aerospace and defense. That is definitely a new trend. And the attack surface is exploding. Back when I did code and was a programmer and developer, I'd worry about databases and servers and other devices. Today, you got to worry about wearable devices. You got to worry about embedded chips. You need to worry about those exploding endpoints. So we have a dramatically increasing attack surface. We have more robust threat vectors, and we have a growing skill set established in the bad actors. 2011, global spend on defensive cyber, not offensive, $55 billion. 60 the next year, 86 last year, and it's targeted to be in excess of 100 billion this year. Much of this cyber spend is duplicative spend because we don't collaborate enough amongst industry, amongst academia, and amongst government. That needs to change. This is an example of an ecosystem that we have established. I'll just give a few examples. The way you read this, government programs focus on positioning, creating intimacy, and improving the network. Private sector programs focus on influencing policy, technology, and leadership. And talent, curriculum, and accreditation are goals of the academia. And we spend a huge amount of time focusing on the future. What is the future of cyber and many other technologies? Some examples, Cyber Maryland. I'm on the board of Cyber Maryland. It's a ecosystem that we established 3 years ago. It's very similar to Cyber Spark that was announced by Prime Minister last night in his speech. It's a great model to leverage. We've been in this journey for 3 years and had tremendous successes, and there's about 30 deliverables, both people, process, and technology that came out of that, so I would encourage studying that. One of the things we did last 2 years ago is we opened a Cybersecurity Hall of Fame in Baltimore, and we've inducted 16 of the iconic figures in cybersecurity and process, people and technology, academia across the world to create icons so students and professionals can aspire to be these individuals as an example. The President Obama and Vice President Biden launched a job-driven initiative activity that spawned and identified the areas in our nation that we need to prepare for an explosive growth in jobs. Cyber was one of them. The NICE initiative is, I'm on the NICE board. Our goal is to help fill the 340,000 jobs in U.S. today that are open today that are a cybersecurity profession. 340,000 are open recs. The NICE objective is to connect with all 40 million students in America and educate them on cyber and other key professions. So we need to inspire and motivate the community. One more, the International Global Security Workshop. This basically is a gathering of defense ministers on an annual basis. I'll be speaking at this in Paris in October, and another speaker from here will also be there. 4-star generals, ambassadors, senior NATO officials. The content of this is typically air, land, sea, space warfare. 5 years ago, cyber was added. These leaders have 50% of the agenda focused on cyber warfare, with the other 50% being land, air, sea, space. World leaders get it. Defense ministers get it. Ambassadors get it. This is important, and it's great to see that. That's definitely a switch from years past. These are just other examples. I won't go into any of the other ones. This is a highly interactive slide that's available on the internet. Some best practices. It's very important to establish a security posture for yourselves or your customers, understand the gaps that you have against a proven model, and develop a business case to justify the investments that a CFO or agency lead and ministry lead will understand. You've got to develop the ROI of that investment, and that investment should be focused on advanced persistent threat objectives. There's enough tools out there that address the common threats available. We published a very unique cyber kill chain methodology some years back. I'll talk about that shortly, but that is the best practice. Typically, if you have an attack, you only need to be wrong once, and they get in. With the cyber kill chain methodology, you got to be wrong 7 times in a row for them to get in, for any attack. You got to understand your adversaries, what tools they're using, what tactics they're using, and what techniques. And you need to be able to emulate those tools and play those out and define those yourself. Given you can do that, then you can access your capabilities to detect, monitor, mitigate those advanced threats. 80% of all cybersecurity best practices can be automated, period. 80%. 20% is the APT, the zero-day vulnerabilities. That's where your focus should be. That's where your investment should be. That's where all our tools are focused on in Lockheed Martin, advanced persistent threat. Analytics is key. We focus on a method of intelligence-driven defense. We track 35 of the most difficult terrorist cyber groups out there and understand many of their moves. You've got to have a workforce. And when you talk cyber, you really need to put it in context of the mission or the business you serve, not just IT. Here's the kill chain. Like any kinetic warfare or any kinetic attack, every cyber attack has a reconnaissance phase, a weaponization phase, a delivery phase, exploitation, installation, command and control, and then the bad stuff happens, action on objectives. Our approach and the tool sets and the solutions and the services that we and our partners have created focus on capabilities to detect, deny, disrupt, degrade, and deceive in all these layers. They need to be wrong 7 times to get in the Lockheed Martin network and the customers we serve. Our enterprise, Lockheed Martin is a huge company. Many of you know us about our aeronautics and our space systems, but we are the largest IT federal provider, the U.S. federal government, for the last 20 years. 1/3 of Lockheed Martin revenue is associated with IT, information technology. And that's one of our focus areas of my business in Israel going forward, providing IT capability with partners and the like. There's some of us, 116,000 employees, 1,000 sites in 75 countries. The key point about Lockheed Martin's network is we, on an average daily basis, we are attacked by 55,000 unique attackers, 55,000. And we monitor, assess, and detect and manage over 2 billion sensor events per day, 2 billion. There are 125 nations out there with cyber operations as part of their national security fabric, and damn near every one of them are pointed at our network and some other large suppliers. So it's a challenge out there. We do this very well, our partners do it well, but it is getting worse and worse, and it's not going to get any better in the near time soon. Last slide here, where is cyber going? So I talked about the Internet of Everything, which is upon us. Everything in your house at some juncture is going to have an IP. Refrigerator, your toaster, your TV, and the ones you're traditionally associated with, and your car. Anything with an embedded chip can be hacked. Anything. The future of cyber, as I see it, is citizens of the network, or netizens, will want to establish a digital safe zone to do their work. And that will be established through a virtualized, on-demand-like system, such as a virtual machine or a VDI machine. That will be established through an encrypted kernel with brokered objects, and then you will be in your safe zone. You will do your work, and then that safe zone will be destroyed. Biomimicry will be key. Why do birds flock? Why do fish school? Why do animals herd? Why do bees hive? There's a reason. They've mastered those techniques. Applying those techniques to cyber using swarm intelligence will be a way of the future. There'll be no more passwords. There'll be no more user IDs. you'll have gesture-based authentication, retinal scan, gait, movement, iris, and the like. Metadata and big data will be heavily leveraged, as well as underlying machine learning and predictive analysis of solutions of the future. And semantic gateways, for those familiar with semantic, will be the way forward. All these areas have some excellent work going on across the various ecosystems. And one, if you look up complex adaptive systems Hayden land on the web, you'll see some references to new areas of technologies that are going to be highly relevant to both cyber and other enterprise IT areas. We, Lockheed Martin, are excited about our presence in Israel. We are going to establish a footprint, are in the process of. You'll be seeing much more of us in this environment, and we're looking forward to both partner with the startup companies, academia, and certainly serve with Israeli citizens, the great nation that you all live in. So thank you.